Welcome everyone to the 12th edition of our live talk. Today I'm here with Odia, Gal, and Nia, and we are going to talk about what to expect in privacy 2024. So this will be a very dynamic session. We are going to talk about different topics. If you saw in the description, we're going to talk about the hottest topics in privacy, the challenging issues that most or some companies or most companies are going to have to deal with. Also, personal tips that me and each one of the guests are going to share with you to help you be a successful person or privacy professional dealing with privacy issues in 2024. So we are going to start with introductions. I'm here with three rock stars, so Odia, Gal, and Nia. I'm sure you already know them. But as I did in previous sessions, I think people's stories and journeys are important. So I'd like to invite the guests to share a little bit quickly about what you can share about your company and what you do and what took you to the privacy field. So what was I quickly tell, and also for those that are thinking about starting or transitioning to privacy, what was the click that you had or something that is special about privacy that made you want to stay in this field? Before we start, make sure to subscribe to Luisa's newsletter so that you get notice about the upcoming live events and also the weekly analysis on privacy tech and AI. And yeah, so let's start. So let's start with Odia. Can you please tell me a little bit about you, what you do today, and what took you to the privacy field?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. Happy New Year. I'm Odia. I am a partner and chair of GDPR compliance and international privacy at Fox Rothschild, which means that I'm a partner at a law firm. So we do everything. I don't need to talk about how well we do. My practice is really 100% privacy compliance. And so what I do is really, I look at technology, I look at products and services and data uses and figure out what data privacy, data protection laws apply to it and how to go about doing it in a way that's compliant. The way that, and from the title, you can tell that I do a lot of US privacy, but I also do a lot of European privacy, which is increasingly coming in handy with the US laws that are modeling themselves after GDPR. How did I get into this? I actually did, I don't know, I think one of the first ever remote learning tech LLMs back when this was like books were shipped to my house kind of situation. But it was tech specific, and it was, I did a bunch of IT and telecom, but also European data protection. And so I was got interested in that and started doing the GDPR piece, and then kind of, had to convince clients that in the US that this was a thing, right? Back in the US privacy was, oh, you do data breach. No. So, and what's keeping me, and what I think is a tip for people that are, or a consideration for people that are getting into this field, is that it's really very dynamic and very fast paced. And so that has pros and cons kind of built into it, because you can't really rest on your laurels. You rest a little bit, suddenly everything has changed. There is the FTC issued a new blog post, there's a new CJU decision, and basically you're giving outdated advice to clients. And for me, one, I'm very curious and I really like learning. And two, it's really important to me to kind of really give good advice. And so the plus here is that it's very dynamic and fast changing. And the pro and the con is it's very dynamic and very fast changing. And therefore, you need to keep up with it all the time. And so I call it privacy FOMO. And I try to contribute my privacy FOMO onto the community. So I do a lot of posting of content on LinkedIn, and I welcome you guys to connect with me.
Thank you. So Nia, please.
Hi, thanks for having us, Louisa. I'm Nia Castelly. I'm the co-founder and head of legal for Checks. And so Checks is an AI-powered compliance platform from Google. And so I've been at Google for about 10 years. And prior to being a part of Checks, I was product counsel for the Google Play Store. And so, I've been practicing for over 20 years, but, and obviously privacy is always an issue for lawyers in some aspect, but it really wasn't until GDPR that my focus really shifted to privacy. As we all know, it was a seismic shift. Companies were trying to figure out the law, figure out how to apply the law. Maybe they're still doing that. But it was challenging. And, from a personal perspective, I'm very privacy sensitive. But on the other hand, I love technology and I'm really passionate about innovation. And so that has led my motivation to advising in this space because I want to make things better, right? To help us to continue to do these amazing things and expand technology and its uses and make the world a better place. How can we do that and still preserve privacy? So that has been my focus. And so in the last 4 years, I kind of pivoted a bit from purely legal advising to actual product development. So along with my co-founder, Fergus Hurley, and our team, we've created and brought to market, Checks. We announced it publicly in 2022. And we're currently in closed beta. And, really the reason why I decided to do this, because, for the lawyers on the call, like we're always putting out fires, right? That's what we're focusing on. That's what we're helping. And I just, during the GDPR compliance phase, when it was first rolling out and just in generally working in the mobile app space, I saw the challenges that all companies of all sizes faced bringing their mobile app into compliance. And, as Odia said, keeping it there because it's constantly changing, right? These requirements. And I thought, is there a better way? Can we do something to kind of help there? And that's where Checks was born. So we're really excited about rolling it out to general availability this year. So more to come in this space.
Thank you, Nia. Gal?
Thank you for having me. So my name is Gal Ringel. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Mine. In short, what we do, we're a data privacy and governance platforms that powers legal, IT, and engineering team to essentially automate many of their daily activities around being compliant to different privacy regulations or building a very good or great privacy program. Our vision is to become the single source of data truth within the organization. So basically providing a real-time view of what systems we are using as a company and what types of data we keep inside. And actually, this is also what brought me to the privacy field. So my background is cybersecurity. I did that for more than 15 years. I had a short 4.5 years career as a venture capitalist as well. I invested in dozens of startups in Israel. And essentially, I'm a data geek. And when I saw the GDPR coming into life in 2018, I thought that, hey, as a human being, as an end user, I'm using the internet all day long, and I have no idea where my data is. And I wanted to really learn what companies are doing with my data. And when I spoke with companies, I learned that a lot of companies don't have any idea what data they keep or what data they collect. And I think that I really wanted to take my cybersecurity and data experience and use it for privacy and trying to create a better, I call it a better internet, but a better privacy future if you would want. So this is my story.
Thank you for sharing, Nia, Odia, and Gal. Now, I didn't say before, so we are here. I think I would say the audience is 70% nerds. I'm kidding, privacy professionals. So please, I recommend, now we are going to start hardcore privacy trends, recommendations, and challenges. So I recommend you do like me, you have a pen and traditional, no computer, pen and paper to take notes because it's going to be dynamic and fast and valuable advice here. So if you have time now, so go grab traditional pen and paper to take note. And now we're going to discuss. So I ask each one, so Odia, Gal, and Nia, to be like, let's try to be dynamic and not like, let's say bullet points or let's say up to maximum 4 minutes. And really, I know so that for the audience, so the idea is that you have like actionable advice. So have like, so you heard now the journeys and the stories. So we come from different backgrounds. I forgot to introduce myself. So my story quickly. So my connection to privacy. Sorry, I forgot that. So it all began very academic, my master's. I was doing my master's at Tel Aviv University, and then I had 2 courses in privacy, and I said, wow, this is really different and interesting, from mostly from an academic perspective, really deep, new and interdisciplinary, and I've always loved interdisciplinary topics. And then there came an opportunity for a PhD in privacy, which it was like sponsored by the European Union, something very international, very interesting. I'm as a lawyer, I was going to be interacting with engineers, so it was everything that I liked, traveling and interdisciplinary. And then I started my PhD, like 100%. It was a privacy and us, so privacy and usability. And then that's what my story. So that's why I started writing a PhD in this project specifically about privacy. And then I really dived deep. And then I wanted to do more than a PhD, and then a newsletter, and these talks, everything started. So my story is different. So what I wanted to share is that you see here, so Odia, Nia, Gal, and me, we have different journeys, different points of view, even though everyone is more or less, let's say, in the privacy field, so working somehow with privacy, we see things from different angles. So that's why I think it's very rich for you in the audience, because you see how probably, I think there are going to be some intersections, but we see things differently. So we have different occupations within privacy. So I think it's going to be an important advice to all of you. So pen and paper ready. Let's start now with Nia. So Nia, what is, in your opinion, what are the hottest privacy topics in 2024? And why do you think they're going to be impactful, especially for privacy professionals and companies? Yeah, here with you.
Yeah, I think no one's going to be surprised that I'm going to start with AI, right? Not sure we could even address this topic without that. But I think more specifically, I think the thing that was that I've kind of honed in on, you talk about the nerds and all of us, right? I think we're all privacy and some of us legal privacy nerds, but the use of public personal data and foundational models, and what does that mean, and where do you get it, and all of the different concepts that fall into that. Not just privacy, obviously, there are other legal considerations, but I think, from a true nerd perspective, I think that's going to be an exciting area, whether it's making the argument for the use of it and why it makes sense and why it's okay, or if that doesn't work, finding ways to ensure that it can still happen so that we can continue to produce the amazing outcomes and continue to advance this technology. So I think that's going to be a big topic. I don't know how many you want me to share, but I'm going to do one more. And I think another big topic, and one that I don't want to say concerned about, but, worried a little bit, is, the rush to enact AI related legislation, and how it will impact privacy legislation. I think we've been having this constant, speaking from a US perspective, many of the states, are rolling out their own versions, and we're still hoping at some point for a combining federal approach to privacy. But, is there's going to be a change in refocusing on this? And is that going to make, privacy regulation more fractured and more difficult to understand and comply with, and ensure that you're approaching this properly? I think that's going to be a big topic to see, how regulators are approaching this.
So if we would say 2 bullet points, it would be AI, so issues, privacy issues in AI, and also regulating AI, the rush to regulate AI.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and you, Gal, what would be your hot privacy topics for 2024?
So I went to the immediate suspect as well, which is AI. I decided to tackle that from 2 different angles. One of them is similar to Nia, so essentially the upcoming AI regulations. So the first AI EU Act, and the White House also published like a framework for that. So I'm excited to see what that would bring. Essentially, around that, I know that we're already speaking with different GCs, and many are trying to understand, what to do with that. There is, I don't want to say panic, but there is some sort of a lot of question marks, like what to do with that. I would focus for 2024 on trying to come up with practical activities that we can do in order to prepare for that, whether it's understanding what AI assets we have within the organization, and understand the risk around it. This is something that we can really understand. And the other side of the AI that I wanted to raise is basically how can we leverage AI or Gen AI as a privacy differentiator? So how can we use Gen AI to boost some of the privacy activities, or even to build a better privacy program or a more comprehensive? And one example that I wanted to take from other fields is the Copilot example, that many other use cases of Gen AI is to do some sort of a Copilot, which is some sort of a private ChatGPT or privacy assistant, if you would want, that we can train him on different company data related to the privacy program, and then we can start communicating with that Copilot to ask questions around the privacy program, or even to perform tasks instead of us. So this is like how can we leverage Gen AI to our benefits and not afraid of that. And I think the other trend, which is started last year and I think would get stronger this year, is how can we shift left privacy to engineering? I think that the same as it happens in the security space, and again, this is my background, so things that happen there usually goes to other fields, especially privacy, but how can we train and educate engineers to think about privacy when they are writing the code, whether it's within cloud environments or any other things? And while they are writing their algorithms, even AI algorithms or just the software in general, how can we train them to think about privacy practices when they are writing the code and not afterwards?
Thank you, Gal. So your three bullets, if we would summarize, would be AI in general, and then leveraging AI for privacy, and then shifting privacy left. So now, Odia, you're in a more. You can say hi too, but I just put you in last one because Odia in the backstage, she told me she had a very long list, so she was the one. She can attack back if she has.
I had redundancies in case of failure, so I'm not going to do AI. So I'm going to go with the following. The first thing I think is the concept that's going to be big is going to be sensitive information and various uses of sensitive information. So sensitive information, first of all, genetics. Genetic data. We've seen the recent, aftermath of the security incident in this space. The FTC issued a blog post on Friday highlighting its expectations and reiterating the fact that it's going to enforce facial recognition and biometrics. We saw the FTC Right Aid decision from a couple of weeks ago that is also the use of biometrics by AI and all of the issues, including bias and the reliability of the AI and vetting third-party vendors, facial recognition, and then location. There's an ongoing litigation by the FTC versus Cojava with respect to sensitive locations, and increasingly in the post-Dobbs laws, right, the significance of location. So I think sensitive information with the heightened requirements attached to it under US laws, right, the requirement for consent or opt out, the requirement for a DPIA, is going to be a big deal in 2024. I think a second one is employees and employee surveillance. So this concept, this a little bit dovetails also into AI, but the concept of employees and employee surveillance, specifically with the aid of AI or not, seems to be an issue of there's a lot of attention to, both in the Biden executive order that Gal mentioned, also in the draft automated decision-making regs from California. They're specifically talking about using AI for surveillance. There is a New York City law with respect to AI in hiring. So I think employee hiring, promotion, surveillance, and the data protection ramifications of that are going to be important. And then finally, which is CCPA enforcement. So, the CPPA got the green light to start enforcing in July. The regs are coming out of hibernation with the injunction in March. The Attorney General, they're all started enforcing the CPRA. And so we're going to see these enforcements in 2024. We haven't actually seen them yet. And so I think that's going to be a big deal because we're going to get some One, some kind of Richter scale reporting, but also kind of lessons learned and things that companies can focus on.
Thank you, Odia. So we have sensitive information, so genetic, facial, location, employee surveillance, and enforcement, so CCPA, CPRA, amendment, etc., and other types of enforcement. And so my case, I will just, I want to bring AI, but just to specify some subtopics within AI. I don't think neither Nia or Gal spoke. So first, this one, so Nia spoke, the idea of Article 6 of GDPR, so lawfulness of processing. So for those not aware, Article 6 talks about you have to have a legitimate cause to process data according to GDPR. So I think, in my view, and I've spoken a lot about that, it's unclear still. AI training can be legitimate interest. And even if it can be legitimate interest, so how can we be transparent and fair when we are communicating that to users? So I think this one thing of AI and privacy. Also, privacy infringement. So how do you communicate to users that they can be infringing other people's privacy when they use the output of ChatGPT or any other AI application? Also, AI companions, I think it's a fascinating topic, and I had this conversation with Professor Ray Kalo. So all those replica and character AI, so children talking with those AI companions, and what are the privacy implications? So privacy legislation for children is a bit more strict. So, and there will be all types of exchange of sensitive data with AI. So how is privacy is going to deal with that? We had a case of the Italian data protection banning replica and then didn't ban anymore. But now these applications are super popular, and I check them in the Apple Store, etc., and they're growing, and I see a lot of data protection issues there. So one is AI, and the other one that I think it's super important, and maybe I'm biased because I pay a lot of attention to that, and I teach that, and the boot camp is about that too. So dark patterns, and not only dark patterns have been trending since at least 2022, so it's not new. But if you think some changes, so you see AI and advertising are bringing new challenges, and with them we can have also dark patterns related challenges. So there's going to be no more third-party cookies in Chrome until the end of the year. So how are those new forms of behavior advertising work out, and how can we think about designing and being fair and being transparent with users? So I think both AI and advertising, because of the changes that are already happening, I think they are going to be also design-related, so dark patterns-related challenges. So this would be my issue. So AI, the specific issues of privacy in AI, and dark patterns. So the second topic of today, so we spoke about the hottest privacy topics. Now I think it's another very important one, and I think I will put together the two next topics. So what will be the most challenging privacy issues for business? So not the hottest, but the ones that businesses will probably have difficulty navigating. And so this is the first part of the question, and the second part is how do guests will recommend that companies can deal with it? So I'm putting together the next question. So the main challenges, and what would be your tip to privacy professionals and companies on how they can navigate. So now let's start with Odia.
So I think that, from what I'm seeing companies struggling with, I think that one struggle that I think hopefully is going to be less for us and is that we lawyers are going to have, and privacy professionals are maybe going to have less of a struggle convincing companies that this is an important thing, because this, like, part of selling what we do and why has been a constant part of my practice and has not been a constant practice of the people that do exactly what I do in Europe, right? So this, like, prerequisite of no, because I had conversation with colleagues and I said, oh, this is going to be really good, this decision, because I can use it as ammo, because I've been telling clients to revise their privacy notice. And I'm like, no, we don't need a deep dive. Like, yeah, you really do. So this concept, they're like, oh, you need to do that. I think this is going to be less, and because of the what we mentioned, which is the enforcement is going to be the FTC enforcement. We're already seeing, we're going to see a lot out of California. We're going to see some things that are going to be incurable in Colorado, Connecticut, etc. So we're going to see enforcement. So I think the more companies are actually, understanding that there is a challenge, the more the challenges become apparent. So, when clients don't turn to me for things, I could think that, hey, this is fine, but it's not fine. So, for example, VSARs or consumer requests, I think that's going to be a big challenge. I think it's definitely going to be an issue once we see the results of the employer sweep out of California. We're going to see a bunch of stuff happening with employers, because suddenly employees are going to be like, oh, this is nice. And I think that there are a lot of companies in the US that have never really dealt with this situation en masse. I mean, they have dealt with it because, the labor laws give you rights. But, nobody really not a lot of people paid attention to it. So I think that's one, either on the employee side or the consumer side. We also know this dovetails with enforcement priorities, because the regulators have said that they're focusing on do not sell and on delete. So that we're going to see enforcement, we're going to see a ramp up. So I think that's one big challenge. The other challenge that I'm going to say, because I'm going to leave the AI to everybody else, but the other challenge that I'm going to name is the DPIAs. I think that companies really, you don't know what it is until you've started to do one, and it's a lot of work. And it's a lot of questions, and we talk about this with clients, and we get answers like, oh, can we just have a generic answer, or can we just say this generally, or or one of my favorites is, which other vendors did you consider for this technology? We didn't consider anybody else. Things like that. Like, these are things I think that are going to flesh out a lot of the issues in the processing, a lot of lack of transparency and silos in companies, a lot of lack of cooperation and lack of transparencies from vendors, right? Because we're still not, I literally had one vendor tell a client, the DPA is your problem. Like, I can't do it without the information. What do you expect me to do here? So I think that is going to be a challenge. And I think it kind of corresponds with the AI stuff, because a lot of the new things that are heightened risk are AI. So you need to do these risk assessments for AI. And I think that's going to be a big challenge.
Thank you, Odia. So now, Gal?
So I chose something basic. I chose data mapping. I think that every conversation that I'm having with anyone within the organization, whether it's legal, privacy, IT, engineering, security, everyone is talking about data mapping. For me, data mapping is two-fold. Step number one is, as an organization, we need to know what we're dealing with. So essentially, what systems we have within the organization. A system can be any SaaS app that we're using, or any asset that we have within our cloud. So whether it's a database, a data lake, a storage bucket, or any email marketing system, CRM, HR system, payment, ChatGPT, whatever. So finding these systems, it's very hard. And the second part of data mapping is, after we know what we're dealing with, we need to scan these systems and really understand what types of data we keep there. And I think that doing that is the fundamental or the key pillar that serves different stakeholders within the organization. And I think that the most challenging part is not just doing that, is having that updated real time and continuous. So surprisingly, many of the companies that we're speaking with are still doing that the manual, old-fashioned spreadsheet questionnaires way, which has three major problems. One is a coverage problem, second is an accuracy problem, and most importantly, the third problem is that it's very static, meaning we did that data mapping exercise today and we are happy, but the next morning, someone within the organization can use a new vendor, or existing vendor can start collecting new personal data, and no one knows about that. And I think that just to give interesting statistics, anytime that we help companies automate that data mapping approach, for the average organization of 1,000 employees, we typically find 1,600 systems. Again, a system can be SaaS or any cloud asset, which is insanely high. And what is more surprising is that 40% of that number, so 40% out of 1,600, which is more than 600 systems, were unknown, right? Or as we like to call it, shadow IT. Meaning there are 600 systems that no one knows about. They didn't get into the DPIA that Odia talked about, or didn't really handled in a DSAR process. So I think that as a true challenge, having that data mapping real time and continuous and automated, which this is like the important part, is the key pillar that unlocks anything else within the organization. So whether it's DSARS, DPIA, ROPA, even AI related things. So I think this is the key part, and how to do it. I think just automation. I haven't found any other way in doing that quicker or like easier. So I think that if we can automate a lot of the daily repetitive and manual tasks around the heavy lifting of doing data mapping, we can really power and unlock all the other challenges or all the other requirements that we are obligated by different laws to do. So I think this is, I try to choose something very basic.
Thank you, Gal. Now, Nia?
So I was going to go a different way, more AI, and how difficult I think the biggest issue will be about the myriad of regulation, right, in the privacy space, and how do you comply with that. But I wanted to go back, and like my third bullet point for like the most, the hottest issues is what I hope will be a hot issue, which is children's privacy. I think we saw, the announcement in December about the COPPA's notice of proposed rulemaking. And I will say I had hoped for more robust guidance and information in that space, given how much feedback was given and all of the hearings that were done and input that was provided from the public. But I think there were enough changes in here that are things that companies need to stand up and take notice. And sort of going to what Gal was talking about, like the point about now there's heightened requirements around disclosure and use of persistent identifiers. If you don't know what's happening in your systems, right, in your mobile app or in other places, it's difficult to ensure that that's happening. Or even just being, what Odia was saying, like trying to, advise your clients to ensure that they're updating their privacy policies, because now there's a heightened requirement about being more clear about your retention policies, right, with respect to children's data. But coming back to, what I focus on, which is just like Gal, how can we leverage technology to make these things, easier, simpler, and actually improve the likelihood you're going to comply? Because in order to protect children, you actually need some of their data, right? So it's a Hobson's choice, like how do we actually do this? But, I think that there are opportunities for, for us to leverage these advancements in technology to make this possible in a way that preserves the privacy of children, but helps companies get to where they need. Because, as a mom, I want my kids to be able to use technology and not have to sacrifice, their data or more than data than they want to. So anyway, I hope that is a hot topic, and I think it will be a challenge too, because some of the expansion under the proposed rulemaking, I think, especially around evidence of child-directedness and, 3 and 4-year-olds are using everything, right? Technology, pads, apps, et cetera. And so what does that mean for, child adjacent, I'll say it, types of companies, products, services? And, what does that mean for you? And I think I will say the last thing I want is for, companies to do less in terms of providing this, because I do think it's a positive experience for children. Technology can be, right, and all that it offers. So we don't want there to be a contracting of services offered to children. But, this is hard and it's risky. And I think, and you asked, like, what can businesses do to prepare? I said this, along with like the other point I wanted to make about, just there's so much regulation, right? Whether it's just in the privacy space, and like, the states, as I've mentioned, continuing to expand. I think we started the year with 5 states with enacted laws, and we're ending with around 20. So it's happening quickly, and thankfully, there tend to be only small differences. And I think in terms of how companies comply is looking for the overarching framework and applying those, right, of what's required. But it's still difficult to track because it's changing. So, as Gal said, leveraging technology like, our products that can allow you to see across the board what you're doing, what's required, and, more focused on what gaps you still need to feed, I think are the best way to approach this, because spreadsheets just, they aren't going to work. At some point, they get outdated, they get voluminous, and then they're not even useful. And then when we add AI on top of that, which clearly will have, we've seen with the EU AI Act, privacy implications. So it's another layer of requirements that are tacked on, or even like Washington State passing the My Health, My Data Act that Odia alluded to, like it's focused on sensitive data, but their privacy implications, and we think about biometrics. So you may not be in the health space, but you still have data that may have these, that may trigger these regulatory requirements. So it's tough and it's challenging. And so, like I said, my recommendation would be to look for tools, platforms, things out there that can help make this easier.
Thank you, Nia. So before I share mine, I'm happy to see that we are all sharing like pro-technology opinions, because privacy professionals sometimes have this reputation of being anti-technology. It will be everything, no results, or anti-AI, and that's not the way, and that doesn't need to be like that. So I like that I heard a lot of using, like, leveraging technology. I think it's interesting. I'm in this sense pragmatic, and I believe in that also. From my perspective, it's aligned with what Nia and Odia said about the challenge of keeping up with the regulatory background. And if we think, and Nia was mentioning the state law. So if we remember, 2016 was the big thing was the GDPR. Wow, let's focus on this new text and new consent and new principles. And then now fast forward, it's a lot. If you compare the number of laws we had 10 years or less than 10 years ago with what happens now, and the speed, and not all. And there are two aspects of this complexity. First is the amount. So we have not only privacy now, AI to some extent it will intersect. So AI Act, and also other forms, at least especially in Europe, that other forms of tech regulation that will have privacy intersection. So the DSA, the Data Act, also. So we were talking about the numbers. So the state laws, there will be probably more laws this year in the US. So all over the world, there is this pressure, not only regulate privacy, but regulate AI. And not only laws, so we have best practices, industry standards, ISO requirements, reports, and to some extent, so if what we are seeing today with AI, so we don't have many examples, and the AI Act is not didn't enter into force yet, and we have reports. So everybody is guiding themselves with certification and ISO and reports. So it adds new layers of complexity, where being compliant, being privacy compliant doesn't mean only laws, means keeping up with reports and standards and best practices. I think it's also in breadth and also in different types of layers of complexity. In terms of how to prepare, and it's also connected to what Nia said, I think there's a lot of interdisciplinarity, as maybe you're not a health tech company, but you have biometric, or probably you have some sort of location, biometric, sensitive data, children's data. So interdisciplinarity, and also in terms of design, and the topic, one of my favorite topics, dark patterns, and how privacy is also connected to product and design. So I think it also shows that companies should think of privacy. And I think also this is changing already. What I would say now is not necessarily as it was in 2016. I would say privacy was very much associated with the legal department. So a legal person that will learn privacy laws and will advise about privacy. So it's changing, and it's getting so more and more. I see companies having like privacy people, not necessarily lawyers, speaking with product teams on a daily basis. This is essential because and if we think about our patterns and design, this is obvious. When you're designing an interface, if there will be interaction with the user, there will be potential privacy issues. And a product person will not necessarily, before the product person did not have to know anything about privacy. And today, I think, and maybe I'm biased, but I think all departments should have some notion of privacy. So to some extent, everyone in tech should know some much more about privacy than it would be expected 5 years ago or 10 years ago, because of this interdisciplinarity, because of this idea of privacy by design and embedding privacy into the design from the beginning. So how are you going to do it if you need a legal department or someone from the privacy department? So it needs to be much more spread on the company, and I think slowly, at least big tech is I see that when I talk with larger companies, the structure of privacy teams is much more spread and within every department, which I think it makes sense, and it also helps to implement and it facilitates the way when you're talking about privacy compliance. So I think how to the pragmatic aspect. So is this idea of spreading privacy, not only one privacy department, but help training and helping people to understand how privacy affects their department. So I'm always obsessed with that because I think that's how we add systems to compliance, and it will help. It will help avoid holes that you didn't see it, or nobody noticed, nobody thought that it was relevant, or there is a hole there. And perhaps, as Gal was saying, perhaps data mapping will help, but maybe if you invite everyone to this privacy discussion, it will be better. So this is my point of view. So for now, for our last question today, so what is your personal tip for privacy professionals who want to navigate 2024 successfully? So less about companies and about what companies should do or legislation, but more about the people. So people here in the audience. So I guess from what I saw in the comments and when I saw people commenting the LinkedIn event, most people here are privacy professionals. So what would be like from privacy professional to privacy professional? We are here, as we saw, Odia, Nia, and Gal, and me. We have different perspectives. What would be your personal tip to help them navigate successfully? So let's start with Gal this time.
So you mentioned not something related to technology, something.
No, it can be just not focusing like from person to person, not like to the business, like to the other person.
Got it. I think that the main challenge that I'm seeing is how can we leverage the entire organization to work towards privacy. Unfortunately, and this is something that I'm trying to change every day, is prioritizing privacy activities, any type of activities within the organization is very hard, right? Because privacy is not considered yet as a revenue generator, right? We need to take engineers, we need to take IT, we need to take security, we need to take a lot of resources from the organization to build the infrastructure or to develop all kind of tools or things to really help meet with different requirements by the law. And unfortunately, it's even more harder to convince the leadership, the management. And I think that what I'm taking is what I'm like recommending is if we can drive a better discussion within the company, and as a CEO, I can say that it has to come from the leadership, from the management, and even from the board to start talking about the importance of privacy and the importance of different activities that we need to apply within the organization. Again, I will keep saying that data mapping, but that data mapping behind the scene is to create a one source of data truth. So as the company grows, a lot of different teams dependent on understanding what types of systems and data we have within the organization, and why should each one of them create their own view for it. Let's all work together. Let's all collaborate together on creating, one place that we can all leverage and, count on and take it then, and each one of us can solve different, business pain points. But I think it all starts with, convincing, the importance of privacy and, treat privacy as a real differentiator, as a real brand differentiator, as a trust elevator, and not as a compliance, checkbox that we need to do. I keep hearing that let's do the minimal effort, right, or the best effort that we can get, and move on to do other things. I think it has to be more than that.
Thank you, Gal. Nia?
Yeah, +1 to everything Gal said is about this. I think we have to, part of this great network we have in the privacy space is sharing best practices about how to doing exactly that, right? Like, how can we make the case that's compelling? Because at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line. So whether that has been what we've talked about today, which is, bringing in technical solutions that allow these things to be done more efficiently, and therefore we can show how with less effort or minimal effort we can get to greater compliance, right? And the benefit being, as you mentioned, Gal, that we can position and market, you can position and market your company as this is a differentiator in the fact that you have these robust practices in place, and your customers, clients can have confidence that you're doing that. And we know, with the constant changes that are happening, transparency is the hallmark. You're going to have to be able to communicate to your customers, your external stakeholders, what you're doing and why you're doing it and you're going to be held accountable, because there is this uptick in enforcement that's coming, not just for the big guys, but for the small folks too. And so it's just a matter of time. So you want to start doing this and pushing this so that your company can be best positioned to not be on the back foot and be able to succeed in the face of this. And I think, for the people themselves, my tip was going to be read some more, and also listen to podcasts, because things are changing so quickly, like monthly, even at times, whether it be the changes in the technology and what, folks are using and the companies are bringing to market, the changes in the laws, but even more so the change in the focus of the day. I don't know if in 2022, maybe we thought we would all be so hyper focused on AI. It's not new, but we didn't know that everyone was going to start talking about it, and regulations and best practices and questions were going to be focused on this. So it's just really important to include that in your daily practice, and podcasts like this are a great way to do that.
Thank you, Nia. Odia?
Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. So the first thing I want to say is, so I'll plug Privacy Council after what Nia was saying. So it's really important for you to know what's going on, but it's really important for you to have counsel that knows what is going on, but is able to interpret it and help you foresee what's coming down the pike in order for you to be able to have preventative compliance, which ties in with what Gal was saying. Like the checkbook, the box thing is a disaster anyway. But it's really important that you get sophisticated legal advice, because the unsophisticated legal advice of here are 15 laws that are going to go into effect in 2024, like ChatGPT can tell you that. What do you need to do now? How do you prioritize? What's a big issue for you is really important. The other thing that I'm going to say is, because I'm a big fan of Stoic philosophy and Ryan Holiday, I'm going to have a courage theme for my takeaways, both for the company and for the individual. So I think for companies, on the courage theme, I think you need to, you need to have a strong privacy advocate. Like you need to have a CPO or, chief privacy counsel, et cetera, who is, frankly, like, both knows what they're doing, but has a strong personality in order to, be heard. So the company, implements it. And you also need to create a system of accountability in the company, right? If it's not in the company culture, then you can have the best, CPO ever, but they go to the CEO and the CEO like, no, that's also not going to work, right? The other piece, which is also courage and ties with what both Gal and Nia were saying, is I have in my notes, don't shy away from the mapping and the clarity. I have clients that just, it's like, it's like my daughter's, the corner in my daughter's room that like is going to take 4 hours to sort through because it's such a mess, right? So you're like, oh, I can't touch that unstructured data, or, oh, I can't touch the, do not sell. Did we separate all the sales and shares? Or, oh, we can't, like, don't shy away from that, and don't kind of gloss it over with kind of vague language in your privacy notice, because guess what? The regulators are looking at your vague privacy notice. They understand it's a patch and you have a mess underneath, and you're going to get an enforcement action. So I think those are two for the companies. And then for people, I think, and people were asking about, careers. I think that generally speaking, you should find, choose this if it's chosen you, right? If it really speaks to you and you're passionate about it. But just generally in your practice, when you're practicing, I would say, be humble on the one hand. So like, don't be driven by ego and like, what would people say, but also be courageous, right? Like it's really important to me. And I do this in my work, and it's, I want to do the right thing, and you should do the right thing. And the right thing, and I'm not talking about, zero risk tolerance. That's not. Companies have to have some sort of risk, but you know what the right thing is. So you need to do the right thing. And if you're outside counsel and the client doesn't want to do the right thing, you need to tell them that they need to do the right thing, because there's going to be consequences. And if you're in-house counsel, you also need to make sure that they're doing the right thing, because, and we said that, one, because it's the right thing, and the right thing should be what we should all aspire to. But also, if that doesn't speak to you, it's because you're going to get an enforcement action with a 20-year timetable on it with the FTC, and that's really going to screw up your differentiating, right? So don't do it for that reason.
Thank you, Oda. I love the touch of stoicism for this talk. I'm not familiar with this author. I saw that you've been posted. I need to check it out, right? You've been really...
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah.
I need to check it out. From my side, I'm going to go... So the one is similar to what Nia said a little bit. So about reading and being... And I think privacy people cannot avoid it anymore. So that's one of the reasons that I write the newsletter. So really, you have to have a broad look into what's going on and have. So I would say, being off topic here, I think privacy professionals should be very organized and have systems. So a system, maybe like Odia waking up 5 a.m. I'm kidding. So, but really, the systems thing, like you need to find a way to follow what's going on. You can't avoid it. Maybe other careers, when you work with if you work with some type of law or maybe tech. Privacy, you can't avoid like following up what's going on. So my newsletter is one example. There are IAPP newsletters are good, or other, for example, newsletters are a good way. Podcasts. Nia mentioned community, so being in touch with other privacy professionals. There's this even joke, the privacy talk, privacy people get together and they talk. But it helps because it's a lot of pressure, and I don't think you can avoid that. There is no way to be like good and up to date if things are changing so fast. So my off-topic suggestion would be systems. So whatever suits you. So waking up early, or having groups of privacy people, community, or newsletter, podcast, whatever suits your routine. You need to have systems to help you digest everything that is going on. And also this idea of interdisciplinarity. So especially from as a lawyer and someone who went to law school, we tend to see things like in a box. So employment law, copyright law, and different boxes of law, and you specialize in one field. And privacy is really not that. It's getting more and more interdisciplinary, and we see that with the design thing and when you need to, if you're a lawyer, you need to know a bit about design and interfaces and tech, and how you talk about consent. And okay, is consent informed? Okay, you know the GDPR, but you need to know consent management platforms. How are they implemented in practice? What can be the legal problem when you're implementing tech? So it involves, it requires a very interdisciplinary brain. So I think as the question was, so in 2024, and also with AI coming, and you need to be fluent in tech. And I think it's like, even if you are talking about privacy, you need to be not an engineer, not a machine learning developer, but you need to talk about AI with certain influences. So I think you should, privacy professionals should try to also look for interdisciplinary training or resources that help you understand and talk about, and when your client asks, and if you're a lawyer or if you're a DPO, if you have to discuss with internal stakeholders about privacy and privacy tech, you need to have that vocabulary, or to not speak like, okay, AI is okay, ChatGPT. It's not enough anymore. I don't think it's an excuse. So you need to go a little bit deeper. So I think it's a good tip for 2024. If you're not such a techie person, this is the year to be more techie, because it's getting deeper into the technology. So as we talk about privacy by design, privacy embedded into design. So if you're a privacy person, I think you're going to be well, work better if you know more about the tech part. So now we finished the big questions. I want to conclude this I hope it was dynamic for everyone, but I want to ask each one of the guests to do, let's go in the Odia spirit of stoicism. You can choose your own kid. You don't need to choose a philosophy, but you can say like a final thing, a very short, like one sentence, a final message to the audience. And please let people know where they can find you, if you're mostly on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on X, on TikTok, or if you're not on social, you're a private person and they can check your company. Really short, so one sentence, and how can they follow you and learn more from you? So let's start. Who should I start? I lost it. So I think Odia. I finished. Let's start with Odia this time.
One sentence takeaway. I don't know. I think maybe kind of get serious about what you are doing in privacy. I don't know. I think as I said, I am kind of, not just because of this, but because of everything that's going on in the world right now. I think that, I actually just read a Ryan Holiday quote, and I can use that. Basically, it said something like, each person needs to do what they can to make the world a better place, understand that the impact will be infinitesimal, and take care of themselves as being a good human being. And I think that's a good takeaway, because you want to, first of all, it's really difficult in the wake of what's going on. And, Louisa and God know this better than anybody, to kind of care about cookie compliance when like the world is blowing up. But you want to do what you can to do something meaningful, care about what you're doing, do the best you can, and then realize that you're part of a bigger system. And for me, the easiest, I do Someone X, but I do a lot on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Nia.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway we have is this is hard, but these challenges are really what makes this space so exciting, right? And, so jump in, dive in, and let's, work together to try to solve these, gnarly problems. And if you'd like to know more about how you can leverage technology to help your company identify, communicate, and fix privacy issues in your app more effectively and efficiently, you can learn more about my product checks on our website at checks.google.com.
Thank you, Nia. And Gal?
Love it. So my takeaway is investing in the single source of data truth within the company, really understanding what we're dealing with as a company, whether it's the systems or the data. I think this is the true pillar to unlock any other thing on top of it. So invest in that, invest in automation. You can find me on Clubhouse. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if this is really exists anymore, but you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter, or in MineOS.ai. This is our website. Thank you.
Thank you. So my short take off topic. So invest in personal growth. Personal growth will come before professional growth. So yeah, health, work-life balance, do things that you love. It will all help you be inspired for your privacy journey. You can find me, you know where you can find me, okay? Everybody knows, okay? LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter, luisasnewsletter.com, to be notified of the next live events and receive the weekly emails about privacy, tech, and AI. And if you want to dive deeper, we have now a 4-week bootcamp on privacy, tech, and AI. The January cohort sold out, so now we have the February one. So write to me if you're interested. Get in touch with. I can send you the link, and I'll tell you how you can register. Thank you so much for everyone for joining. I'm so happy to see the chat. I forgot to say in the beginning that it's always nice to have the chat busy, and I didn't need to say anything, and people already started introducing themselves and being polite and sharing resources. So that's the privacy community. It's always like that, and I see sometimes online on X other communities fighting and being not so cool to each other, but the privacy community is amazing, is strong, and is very helpful and nice with each other. So I'm happy to see. Thank you, Odia, Nia, and Gal. It was a pleasure to have you here. So I think the advices, the resources, everything that you said, it's so important. And it's going, so for those that did not watch live, it's recorded, and I'm going to upload on my YouTube channel and podcast soon, and maybe this week. And thank you so much. I see you in the next live talks. Bye-bye.